Hey, it's the good folks at Comics for Fun and Profit reminding you that nobody Patreons like we Patreon. So join us at C4FAP and go over to Patreon/Comics Fun Profit and sign up at a level of your choosing. There's various tiers with various goodies for you. Something that everyone gets at any level is you get to be a part of our Slack channel community, and you get early and ad-free access to all our episodes. But wait, there's more. So go over to Patreon/Comics Fun Profit and check out all we have to offer. We urge you, sign up today.
Aloha! This is Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be interviewing Hugo-nominated writer Corinna Bechko. She is here to promote Avatar, Adapt or Die. Now, this is a 6-part Dark Horse miniseries. Now, please note, Corinna's story is a tie-in to the James Cameron's Avatar movie that came out in 2009. And of course, the sequel of Avatar, Way of Water, I believe that's what it's called, comes out in December. Now, listeners, by the time you listen to this episode, issues 1 and 2 will be out in your local stores already. And if you are interested in this miniseries, please ask your comic shops to reorder the first 2 issues, or you can buy it off of Comixology. Issue 3 will be out in stores on July 6th. Corinna, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing very well.
Oh, yes, and thank you very much. Thank you for your time today. Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for taking your time to talk to me.
Oh, thank you. Now, before I continue, I'm going to let the listeners know that some of the information I got for Corinna came from a podcast, Spoiler Country, that came out last year in January 20th of 2021. And also, Corinna, I got some of your information from your website, CorinnaBechko.com. Is that correct?
That's right. I really need to update that thing.
Oh, no. Now, I'm just going to go over your history, and please feel free to correct me anytime, or if you want to add, and that's fine too.
Terrific.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, your first comic book series that you wrote was Heathen Town, that came out in 2009 from Image/Shadowline Comics?
That's right. It actually came out as a complete graphic novel, which I think is kind of unusual, but at the time, Shadowline especially was doing some kind of risky things. So,
okay. And then also too, you and your former writing partner, Gabriel Hardman, wrote the following: the highly praised Boom series, Planet of the Apes.
mm-hmm.
Yes. And I'm good. I've heard so much great things about it. I need to check that out. I really do. So, and also to the highly praised Invisible Republic, that was a finalist for the 2016 Hugo Award for Best Graphic Story. You also Green Lantern Earth 1, the original graphic novel series that only had 2 books that came out. Mm-hmm. And then also 2 Station to Station by Dark Horse.
Mm-hmm.
That looks very good. So, and then now also you also wrote the following. Now you did the the Expanse miniseries for Boom Studios from last year. Mm-hmm. Is that correct? Okay.
That's
and then
right.
also
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry. That's right.
Okay. And then
Boom.
And then you also wrote Once Upon a Time, Shadow of the Queen. That was from Marvel. And then you also wrote Aliens, the Aliens Vampirella crossover. That was from Dark Horse and Dynamite Entertainment. And then last year, you also wrote Sensational Wonder Woman #8. The reason why, listeners, I'm pointing that out is because I love that story. That was a great story.
Oh, thank you. That was so much fun. What an honor to write Wonder Woman. Like, what a dream.
That was, I love that story. It was really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And then also too, you also wrote, you have done some nonfiction books. You wrote a children's book. It's called Smithsonian Dig It, Dinosaurs with Brenda Scott Royce that came out in 2019. And then you have two more upcoming children's books. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I wrote one called 1000 Super Space Facts for the Smithsonian, which is exactly what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm currently working on another dinosaur book, which will be a dinosaur fact a day for a whole year. So 365 dinosaur facts.
That is so cool. May I ask you, like, how did you get the opportunity to work on these science books for children?
I have one foot in the science community and one foot in comics. So my friend Brenda actually writes a lot of children's books. She's a wonderful writer. And when an opportunity came up to do dinosaur book, she knew my day job is as a fossil preparator, which with the
Yes.
Natural History Museum here in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And so she told her editor, "Oh, I have somebody who would probably collaborate really well on this." And I cannot thank her enough for bringing that to her attention, because that was a great gig. The book comes packaged with a little skeleton that you can dig out of some clay, and it's really cute.
That's so cool. And then your one of your latest books, the 1000 Super Space Facts. I'm just going to ask, do you know when that's going to come out?
Yeah, it should be in the fall.
Oh,
I
okay.
believe it might be even a little earlier than that as a Costco exclusive for folks that have a Costco membership. And then after that, it should be wider. So should be around by the holidays.
Oh, okay. All right. That's pretty cool. Now, I'm going to ask, did I miss anything? I know you have an incredible history of work, but did I miss anything? Or is there anything you want to point out that stands out?
Gosh, I did write a book that was a companion to when the most recent Aladdin movie came out for Disney. And what else have I done? I worked on some Tarzan back in the day. And I don't know if you mentioned Miss Fury. That was one of my favorite books I've written.
No.
It's called,
okay.
Yeah, Miss Fury, and it was called The Minor Key. And that was a very fun project.
Oh, okay. All right. No, thank you very much. Now, where can listeners follow you on social media?
I'm pretty active on Twitter under my name, Corinna Bechko. And I have a Facebook account, which is also under my name, and an Instagram account if you want to see a whole lot of dinosaurs and books. This is basically what my Instagram is.
I have to say, I love your. I'm only on Twitter. I love some of the pictures that you post about, just behind the scenes in the museum. Like, look at this cool fossil. I just have to say that.
I'm so fortunate. I'm so glad somebody appreciates that, because I get very excited about fossils and just really want to share them.
I'm sorry, I'm going off the cuff here because no, I understand because as like most kids, like I love dinosaurs and so forth, and whenever I see like literally fossils, fossils that are intact and stuff, it just, oh my God,
It's incredible, and getting to work with them every day. You're literally working with something that no one in the world has seen before as you clean it off, like when it comes out of the ground. Like it's been in the ground for 200 million years and you're the first person to touch it. It's an amazing experience.
Yes. I'm sorry, I'm just real quickly. It was, where was it? It was a museum in Austin. Don't ask me which museum. I remember my friends took me through. So I was like, oh, this is great. This is, yeah. And then we go down to this basement area, and oh my God, all these fossils that were either encased in like these huge glass fixtures and stuff. And the unfortunate thing was, I remember there wasn't enough space, but it was all like, it was just cluttered. But I still remember seeing one of those, and I can't remember, one of those big fish, one of those big dinosaur sea fish or sea dinosaurs. I don't know which ones, but it was.
Oh yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I think I know exactly what you mean, because I went to a conference in Austin for paleontology a couple of years back and got to go to that basement level. And yeah, it's an amazing collection. It's so exciting. I'm glad you got to see that, because what fun.
Oh, yes. All right. Oh, sorry. Okay. So I'm sorry. Let's get back on track. Sorry. So I'm going to ask, where did you grow up?
Sarasota, Florida, which
Uh-huh.
at the time was a sleepy little Gulf Coast town, and I guess now is, I think there's even a reality television show about it. So it's not,
Okay. And then what were your what was your first comic or Sunday comics that you read growing up?
it's funny. I always read the comics in the paper.
Mhm.
I actually really liked like Prince Valiant, like
Oh no,
those
yes, yeah.
and like the ones that kind of told a story.
Hmm.
But as I got into high school, some of my friends had like, ooh, you could find rarely, but sometimes you could find issues of Love and Rockets.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was very intrigued by those, and also Harvey Picar's American Splendor was
Hmm.
something I could rarely find in my little town, but oh, I loved it. So
Okay, that's cool. Um, and then what kind of books did you read while you were growing up?
I love to read, and I'm
Yes.
really just I cast a wide net, but
Hmm.
especially when I was a kid, I really loved science fiction. My dad would, it was a big thing. My dad would take me to the mall bookstore and be like, "Okay, you finished your book, pick out two more." And he was very supportive of that. And
Hmm.
actually, my aunt was also a writer who wrote mostly westerns, but would sometimes give me like sci-fi and fantasies. So along with the classics, of course,
Yes.
like your normal Dickens or whatever.
Hmm.
I read a ton of all sorts of science fiction and fantasy.
Okay. And then I'm gonna ask you. I know this is a very hard question, but like like who is your favorite writer or writers?
Oh, that is so hard.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
I love Paul Bowles, just because he's so it's a very like sort of sideways way of looking at stuff, very understandable emotions, but sort of tinged with a sort of terrifying edge.
Hmm.
I also love Shirley Jackson,
Oh.
and the We Have Always Lived in the Castle is one of my very favorite books.
Oh, okay. All right. Um, I'm I'm gonna ask, like, how did you get started in writing? Now correct me if I'm wrong, because you wrote short stories and well, of course, and comics as well, but you also wrote short stories as well too, right?
Yeah, I've always loved to read, and then I kind of thought it was something I couldn't do, but then I tried and I was like,
Hmm.
oh, I'll send some of these off to anthologies or whatever. And they started getting accepted, just little short horror stories mostly.
Hmm.
And after that, um, I wrote like sort of I didn't know much about the comic. Like I'd read comics, but I didn't really know how to like write a script.
Hmm.
So I worked with Gabriel Hartman, and
Hmm.
um, we did Heathen Town. So I kind of wrote it out, not in a very traditional way, but luckily he is an incredibly talented
Hmm.
writer and artist, and was
Yes.
able to interpret what I was doing. And that was a steep learning curve,
Hmm.
and made it possible for me to go on and write for other people in ways that were more understandable.
Hmm. All right. And then now now listeners, because I follow Corinna on Twitter. I've listened to some of your interviews, and this question, is not out of left field because I'm going to ask you, Corinna, where did your love for zoology come from?
Oh gosh, I've always been just really into the natural world and
Hmm.
animals and how animals interact with their environment. And I always loved dinosaurs. From
Hmm.
like my first memory is going to the Smithsonian in Washington
Yes.
D.C. That's my very first memory, is the dinosaur hall there. So, and crying because my parents said it's time to leave, and I was like 3, and I don't want to leave the dinosaurs. So that just kind of grew into, again,
Hmm.
something that as a woman and as a girl growing up, I thought, oh, because of when I grew up, girls don't really do science. I probably can't do the math.
Hmm.
And then at a certain point, I was just like, well, but I really want to. So I
Yeah.
went to school for it, and turns out, yeah, I could do science. So
Hmm. So, all right, and I'm going to say this is going to me, this is kind of and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel it kind of ties into that I could be wrong, but your zoology background sort of kind of would tie into the miniseries Avatar: Adapt or Die. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh no, absolutely. I think that's true. And when that project came up and they approached me about it, I was like, how perfect, because that the world, like Pandora, the world of
Yes.
Avatar, is almost another character. Like
Yes.
the animals and the plants, and I mean, not even almost, it is another character.
Mm-hmm.
So and I've thought a lot about sort of different forms of biology, and especially like working on Invisible Republic, we talked a lot about how different worlds would work and interact with humans. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a topic I had thought deeply on in
Mm-hmm.
the past. So it was
Yes.
really interesting to take that and apply it to somebody else's universe.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, I'm gonna get back to like how when they approach you. But before I do, I want to ask, what is what is your story about?
Oh,
Um,
Adapt or Die.
yes.
It's a early it's a prequel, so before the original movie,
Mm-hmm.
and it ties in with my favorite character is Grace, and
Mm-hmm.
I was really lucky because they wanted to tell a story about Grace and how it came to pass that she was able to get the school for the children, the local children, off the
Yes.
ground,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously there was a lot of drama around that before the horrible stuff happened that is referenced in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a time period that I had actually wondered about when I saw the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and then it turns out that that's the time period they wanted this book set in. So I actually have some ideas for this.
Nice. So okay. So um I know you said that so I'm gonna say when you say they, Dark Horse approached you, right?
Mhm.
Ah, okay. May I ask, like, when did they approach you? How did it come about?
It was actually a very easy, some things you have to go in and pitch for and whatever. And in this case, I think they had a pretty good idea of what kind of thing they wanted. And it
Yeah.
was between me and a couple of other people. But I think basically because of my background,
Mhm.
they knew that I would be able to understand some of what they were going for here, because it's a story very rooted in the clash of not only ideals
Mhm.
and cultures, but also just of almost of basic biology and what we put out into the world and what we take in.
Yes.
So that's I kind of had some ideas around that, and it was sort of seamless. Like they approached me about it and I was like, oh gosh, yeah, this is this is
Mhm.
up my alley. So
Oh, okay, that's so cool. I'm gonna ask, like, you know, how much research? I mean, you already was already, like you said, when you're watching the movie, you're already thinking of, how did this come about and so forth. But when Dark Horse approached you, how much research did you have to do? Did you rewatch the movie or?
oh, absolutely. Yeah, immediately. I did that
Yes.
because it had been a while. I had seen it in the theater,
Hmm.
and then I don't think I had seen it since then. Everybody remembers the very striking visuals and everything,
Yes.
and the characters are very, especially Grace was like,
Mhm.
of course I remembered her.
Yes.
But yeah, I immediately rewatched the movie, but the world of it is very integrated, like the games and the other comic books, and
Hmm.
it's very much um, in the universe. And Cameron keeps a tight grip on what is something that would belong in that world and what is something that definitely would never happen in that
Hmm.
world.
Oh, okay. All right. And then before I want to ask this one question before I start getting a little bit more into just process and stuff. May I ask, what did you love about the Avatar movie? Because I know you talked
You
about.
know, this
Sorry.
this will come as a surprise to no one, but I love the idea that there's a whole biome on this world to be discovered.
Hmm.
And I love that the scientists, and especially like Grace, but the other scientists too in the world of Avatar, are really curious about this. And sure, there's the prophet you know, the folks that are only about the profit and the unobtainium and all of that. But
Mhm.
the curiosity of the scientists involved is something I recognize from working at the museum, because people here at my work, they love what they do and they would go to the ends of the universe to study what they do. Absolutely.
That's so cool. Okay. Um, s- how closely did you work with? Now I'm going to try to pronounce this gentleman's name, Joss Izzo from I believe it's probably the Lightstorm studio of James Cameron, correct? And
Yeah, absolutely.
Nicole Spiegel from 20th Century Studios. How closely did you work with them?
You know, it was an interesting process, because when we were getting up to speed, I was given a lot of the like Bibles and what have you for the
Mm-hmm.
animals, the people, and the machinery, because it's all very exacting. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there are mechanisms to all of these things. They've all been figured out, and there's not a huge amount of room for invention of those types of
Mm-hmm.
things exactly,
Mm-hmm.
because so much of it already exists.
Mm-hmm.
But making it work in the world is really important. So I had a couple of meetings that were Zoom meetings
Mm-hmm.
with folks from all of these places and Lightstorm and my own editors. But after that, and after they knew that I had a handle on it, they kind of just let me go
Oh.
and would, um, I did a treatment, a detailed outline, and then I
Mm-hmm.
just started writing the scripts. And I didn't realize that Cameron would actually read the scripts. So that was a little bit of like a surprise when they said, "Oh yeah, it's taking a little while to get back because he's very busy and he wants to read it." And then I was like, "He's reading my words? What?"
Yeah.
So I was a little starstruck by that, but I didn't speak with him directly, but notes would come back, that kind of thing. Not a huge amount, actually. He was very generous with what he allowed me to do with his very, his very beloved characters and world. So that was a great honor.
Off the cuff question. I know you. I could just hear your excitement about hearing about James reading it. I'm off the cuff question. I know you said you didn't get too many notes, but did you get little notes with something? Oh yeah, just do a minor change, or this looks great, JC or something.
I had a couple of notes that were just kind of like, oh, I don't, and they were mostly early on because I really tried to take those to heart. But like,
Yes.
oh, I don't think Grace would quite say this. I think she would do this. And I was like, oh, okay, spot on. Yes,
Mhm.
I will get right on that, because obviously he knows his characters and his world way better than I do. And it's just, I always feel whenever I'm handed a property, be it like, I did a bunch of work on Star Wars
Yes.
back when it was with Dark Horse, or if it's, Wonder Woman, whatever it is, I really want it to feel like the world and the characters that people expected to feel
Yes.
like. So that I really paid strict attention to.
But I'm just and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just kind of it's kind of it really shows how James Cameron knows his character. It's not like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds okay." He didn't kind of, but it's just no, no, he knows
Right.
he knows his characters inside and out, basically.
Absolutely. And it's pretty impressive. I mean, that man must be very busy, and the fact that he takes the time to read the scripts for the comics is
Yes,
really impressive to me, because not everyone would do that.
yes, yeah. That is that is so cool. I'm sorry, that's so cool. Um, let's see. I'm gonna I am going to go um now I I'm just asking you know with Lightstorm and 20th Century Studios and James Cameron looking over your script, I know you said there wasn't too much of wiggle room, but I'm just gonna ask, were you able to introduce like maybe like a new character in the story or you know
It was a funny thing, because I kind of felt like, because it was a prequel,
Mhm.
I tried to go carefully through, like, I knew there were certain things I wanted, like certain types of animals or plants or, animal plants, as the case
Yes.
may be, because this is, of course, Pandora, where such petty distinctions are maybe not what they are in our own world.
Hmm.
But I would look, and sometimes I would go back and forth with the folks at the studio, and often we could find a character or a plant or animal or whatever that would fit what I needed, because it has been so thoroughly worked out. And
Yes.
that was actually really fun, because I was like, oh, maybe this particular thing has been in the background of a video game.
Yes.
And it didn't really have, it was interesting local color, but now it can have a little more of a story to it. So
Hmm.
that was actually a really fun thing for me to do. It's sort of flesh out some of the things that we had seen or just glimpsed before.
Oh, that sounds so cool. No,
Yeah,
it really does, because
yeah, it
it's,
was really fun.
because, and I'm not being sarcastic, but as you mentioned, that already the world is already laid out for you. The characters in the your story takes is a prequel to this already, and that's great that you can use the characters from the movies. Goes, okay, how where were they? You know, when Grace was trying to set up the school. Oh, that's so.
Right. And it was an interesting challenge too, because of course there's not exactly time travel in Avatar, but there is the long time it takes to get back and forth to Pandora.
Mhm.
So figuring out where characters were at the time was interesting, because there were some people that I thought, oh, I'll use them. And it's like, well, you can't, because they were obviously on en route during
Yeah.
this period.
Oh,
So
okay.
there are a lot of moving parts when working with stories that are still actively being written in other forms.
Okay. So, and this part here, I'm being serious. You know, were you allowed to give Avatar fans a taste of what the sequel might be? Such as, I know, like you said, like in a video game or in a comic book,
Mhm.
or even in the movie, there may be something in the background you brought to this story. But what about, like, are you able to give, or did they allow you to, did the studios, and were they allowed to, did they allow you to give Avatar fans a taste of what's coming up? Like, say, for example, um, since it's going to be in Pandora's oceans, like, are we going to see like a new species of a dolphin or a whale or something?
Um, they actually wanted me to stay away from that stuff
Uh-huh.
as much as possible. So in this story, instead of going towards that area, we actually go towards a different part of Pandora that we haven't seen before. So you will see new areas,
Hmm.
just not the coast and the ocean. It's going to be highlands and
Hmm.
some areas that look very different and have some very different flora and fauna.
Hmm.
But um, since the world is so big, they wanted me to explore something different than what would be seen in the movie, so that people wouldn't just, oh, there it is again. You
Oh,
know,
yeah. No, but that makes sense. Oh, but
kind of expand the world instead of,
yeah, but it's pretty cool that, um for in some sense, again, it's nice that they already have this Bible, and they're really kind of, to me, they really know how to use the full medium of everything. Like, the movies the sequel will focus on the water, but in the comics, because since it's going to take another 10 years before we make another movie or something, I want you to focus on this
absolutely.
part, where we're never going to see in the in the movie. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I love how they do that. I mean, it's nice that they've actually thought about it. And in when I worked on The Expanse
Yes.
too, they were very paying attention to the details, and the people involved in the show actually were paying attention to the comics. And I really like it when a company or a person or whoever controls the property cares that much, because
Yes.
it kind of makes me upset when people are like, oh, it's just comics. It's like,
Mhm.
no, this is a medium for telling a story that's just it's a different medium.
Mhm.
And it's very heartening to me when the people behind the scenes take an interest in that level.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Um, how much of your zoology background help you enhance the story? Like, and I think you already touched on some of the answers, but like, were you able to create scenes on how some of the creatures on Pandora, the wildlife, live in the forest or hunt or, you know?
It's funny. I mean, I don't know how much of it is apparent on the page, because on the page it's like it's a story that goes forward and you only have, the number of pages in a single issue to get
Yes.
the entire story out, including the emotions of the people and all of that.
Hmm.
But behind the scenes, just
Yes.
for me personally, it helped a huge amount, because I was constantly thinking about how would the environment interact with the avatars and the humans, and what would that mean for how big the Navi were compared to the humans, and
Hmm.
what what the humans are doing to the landscape, how that would actually affect the
Yes.
animals and the plants and the
Hmm.
water, and the water that was being drunk by the animals. And
Hmm.
I think, I don't know if this is something that probably everybody kind of thinks like this, but I think about this all the time in
Hmm.
my job, in my
Yes.
work,
Hmm.
in my writing. So I think it helped a lot, actually.
No, it does because in the first issue, I love there's two panels where correct me if I'm wrong, one of the main characters, Grace,
Hmm.
they're at the school. She's trying to teach, I think, showing the kids the school. I know they had a basketball, and and I think she pointed out to them, look, life is growing back over here, and then all
Hmm.
of a sudden, next thing you see is the human stomping on the on a probably one on probably like an important key plant life, and I was like, wow, you know, you know.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like stuff like that. I mean, I guess it's sort of an obvious metaphor, but it's also something that I've actually seen happen in life. Like, I do field work every summer,
Mhm,
and we work out in the desert, and plant life out in the desert is very robust in the fact that, in the way that it can grow in very harsh conditions, but it's fragile in that it takes a long time, and it's a hard life to be a plant out in the desert.
mhm,
And some of the plants, you can't even really understand their plants. There's this stuff called the crust on the desert that's like they're little algae kind of stuff that lives in the soil, and it
mhm,
creates a kind of a mat. And one of the things that we always tell each other is, don't bust the crust. You're not supposed to walk over where the crust is,
mhm,
because it looks like you're just walking on a more, I don't know, solid part of the sand. But what
yes,
you're really doing is stomping over something that's taken decades to grow, and is keeping the soil in place and
mhm,
allowing the little cactuses to grow there. And um, it's all interconnected. But if you didn't know it, you wouldn't know it, and you just stomp it. You
mhm.
know?
Oh, okay, but but again, like the thing I like is about how your thought process, how everything is how how everything is affected, how what we do and so forth. Oh, wow. I'm sorry, I'm going to continue on.
Mhm.
Um, so how did you team up with your artist? Now correct me if Benny Lobo?
I believe that's right. We have communicated only through social media and email.
Uh-huh.
So I'm hoping that that's how I've been saying it. I hope that's
Mhm.
correct. I actually just got super lucky with that, because Dark Horse arranged the whole team.
Oh, okay.
And when I saw his pages, I was blown away. It
Yes,
looks so amazing.
it really does. Um, listeners, it really does because I read the first issue, um, and I know this kind of sounds, I know, but um, but the Navi looks almost exactly like how they are in the movies. It's
Right? They really do. And the likenesses, like, you
yes,
can tell that's Sigourney Weaver. Like, it's so good.
yes, and also too, the other character, the human character, I want to say Giovanni Ribisi.
Mhm.
It's like, I mean, he has the mask on because he's outside, outside in the atmosphere, but you can tell the facial feature. I mean, it's not exact, but you can tell Yeah, that's it's Giovanni Ribisi's character from the movie.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he did such a good job, and with the such detailed work too. Like that could not be easy to bring Pandora to life because there's just little bits of interesting things in every corner.
Hmm. Yes. And then I'm just going to ask, do you want to give a shout out to the other creators on the book, or?
Sure. Yeah, the colors are Wes Dzioba, I
Mhm,
believe that's how you say, which are amazing and just spot on. Again, it's so important to have the art and the color look like
mhm,
the films, and just it's amazing that he was able to capture that because the films are so vibrant, and I think that's one thing people really remember
mhm,
about the films. So, and letterer is Michael Heisler,
mhm,
also amazing talent, and the covers I just absolutely in love with. That's Mark Molchan,
mhm,
and just every time I saw a cover reveal, I was like, yes,
mhm,
this is what I pictured. This is what I wanted to see. And oh my gosh, they reflect what I wrote. Wow.
mhm. That is so cool. Um, what were some of the cool responses you got from your other writer friends when they heard that you're writing this series?
Oh, it's actually really funny because my one of my very closest friends is actually Brenda, who I wrote the first dinosaur book with.
Mhm.
And I told her, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I want to see that again." And so I was like, "Okay, well, it'd be more fun if we watched it together." And we actually watched it with her mom, who had never seen it before.
Mhm, yes.
And it was a great thing because to watch it with someone that hadn't seen it before, who was her mom loves animals and is really interested in science and stuff, and just to see her wonder as she discovered the world for the first time was really inspirational for me to go ahead and start writing after that, to see how someone could
Mhm.
react to the world that hadn't seen it before. So,
That is so cool. Now, I'm just joking on this part. In your contract with Dark Horse to write this Avatar miniseries, did you include to get tickets to attend the world premiere of the sequel when it
you
comes
know,
out?
I was so tempted to do that, but no, I was just so happy to get to write it that I didn't. Although it's kind of funny, through my work just now, I got to go to the premiere of Prehistoric Planet, and I was like, you know, it's not that different.
Oh, that is so cool. Um, all right. I'm gonna slowly wrap things up. Um, now you mentioned that you are a do you work as a I'm gonna check fossil preparator? Is that correct?
Preparator, yeah.
Preparator, prep. Sorry.
You can call me a fossil prepper. That's fine.
Now, how did you get this awesome job?
You know, it's funny. I always wanted to do something like this. I've always wanted to be have a job in paleontology. And I started volunteering just as a floor volunteer at the Natural History Museum. And there was a little bit of nepotism because I used to work as a zookeeper.
Mhm.
And one of my closest friends at the time, she worked as a zookeeper at the LA Zoo. And one of her volunteers was the volunteer coordinator at Natural History Museum.
Oh, okay.
So she mentioned to the volunteer coordinator over here that her good friend Corinna really wanted to work behind the scenes.
Hmm.
So she did get me an interview with the folks in the fossil lab.
Hmm.
And it's not that I was placed there because of who I knew, but I did get the interview because of who I knew, I have to
Yeah.
admit. So, but after I talked to them for a while, they gave me a shot as a volunteer, and I just loved it so much.
Hmm.
And I just hung around until they started paying me. So now I'm full time here doing that.
That is so cool. Okay. Um, what is the most fun or exciting thing that you love about writing?
About writing, you know, it's funny. I know it's a common thing to say that writing is hard, having written is wonderful. And I think there's some truth to that.
Mhm.
It's a really hard job in many ways, even though I know people are like, what, you just get to sit there and make up stories. And that's true.
Mhm.
But I actually love that I have a body of work that I can see on a shelf, and that I can look at that and go, yeah, I did this. It's really nice to be able to have an object that you can hold in your hands that you created.
That's so cool. Thank you very much for answering
And of
that
course,
question.
I should say yes, not just me, the whole team with the comics. I'm not trying to take
No,
ownership.
yeah.
It's a collaborative process, but something that you worked on.
Mhm. Okay. So, do you have a favorite convention moment, whether it as a fan, or as a creator?
Oh gosh, one time years ago, I was at San Diego Comic-Con
Mhm,
as a fan,
mhm.
and I was going somewhere in a hurry, and somebody he almost ran into me, kind of elbow checked me,
Mm.
turned around, said sorry, and kept rushing. And I looked and I was like, oh my god, that was Harvey Picar.
Oh.
So it's great, those little moments that you can get. I actually really missed those during the pandemic, where you just never know who you're going to run into at a
Mhm.
con. It's nice. You can't have those kind of moments online.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have an do you, I know we're still in a pandemic and conventions are slowly restarting again. Do you have a do you are you going to be appearing at a convention or a store signing appearance sometime in the near future?
Ah, gosh, I don't have anything for certain coming up. I'm hoping to go to Emerald City.
Hmm.
I think I will probably have a table there if, you know, COVID willing.
Yes.
Um, I recently did a signing for Things for Another World at Universal City Walk, so it's not like I'm opposed to doing such things.
Mhm,
It's just sort of a slow restart, but I do really miss them. So if anybody listening wants to invite me to a convention, I am more than happy to go.
mhm. All right. And then have you or your family have been to Hawaii?
Yes, actually, I love Hawaii. I've been to Kauai only,
Hmm.
but I would love to go to the Big Island and see the volcanoes.
Oh my God. I think you would love the Big Island because
Oh, I'm certain.
no, because I think you'd love the what is it called? I think there's like the you would be able to you probably it's my understanding is that the Big Island is the in the Hawaiian Islands is the only one that has like the or three or four different temperature or climate differences. You have the ocean,
Oh,
the beach, and I can't remember the other ones. But then because we also have Mauna Loa where the telescopes are, where it
that's
snows, and you have
see,
everything in between.
I should go there. Like that should be well, it's on my bucket list, but I should probably make this happen because
Mhm.
you're totally right. Like all the things I'm fascinated in are right there.
Mhm. And then also to if you have time to do excursions on the islands, I'm sure there's excursions that will talk about the native plant life, how it's and the Hawaiian culture is all again it's tied into um this kind of like cycle of life, how we
Oh,
respect
absolutely.
the earth, the grounds, and so forth. Yes.
Yeah,
Ah.
when I went there, I did try to look into a little bit of the Hawaiian culture, which I was really ignorant of, I'm sorry to say, but I
Mm.
tried to learn a little bit, and I was blown away by how rich and vibrant and
Yes.
what it entailed. And you always hear tourist stuff, and then to learn about that, I was like, oh my gosh, how could I not know this?
Mhm. All right. Um, Last question. Any closing words to our listeners?
Oh gosh, just thank you for listening, and if you happen to pick up Avatar, Adapt or Die, I hope you enjoy it.
All right. Corinna, I wish you all the success with this miniseries, Avatar, Adapt or Die. And also too your upcoming book, the 1000 super space facts that's going to be coming out um um sometime later this year. So I wish you all the success with all with your work. Um and I want to say mahalo. Thank you for your time. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview. Thank you very much.
Mahalo.
Thank you. Now, if you are a new comic book reader or a lifelong comic book reader, please check out Avatar Adapt or Die. Again, when this interview goes up, the first two issues are out in stores right now. Issue 3 comes out on July 6th. And also, too, check out later this year the 1000 Super Space Facts that's going to be coming out, yes, sometime later this year. I want to thank Drew, the co-host of Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together. Drew, thank you for all your hard work behind the scenes. And if you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. And I want to thank you, the listener. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys, aloha.
Prepare yourself for Dork Day Afternoon, a brand new actual play podcast.
You performers! Oh, that's fun.
The brainchild of two brothers, spawned from their desire to crush the fictional hopes and dreams of their friends and loved ones.
You remember what I said about being a monster of a GM?
Someone has to be a monster, and the GM's the one who probably should be.
2 shows every week. On Mondays, coming to you from the end of the world, 2 past midnight, a Twilight 2000 4th edition campaign.
As if being in prison wasn't stress enough. War is hell, gentlemen.
And on Thursdays, the circus comes to town with Encore of the Lost, a playthrough of the Extinction Curse AP, written for Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
Valiant, no!
What is it, Pumpkin? I'm looking at pumpkins.
Roll for initiative.
Natural 20 for a total of 24.
25.
You.
Dork Day Afternoon. Listen, your life might just depend on it.